My father was a fur trader. He worked for the Hudson Bay Company and he worked for Rivion Frères. And then he had his own business. He had a store here and everything. And I asked him, you know, of all the places you could have been, why did you choose to live among the Cree here in Mistissini? And he told me, he said, no, son, I've never found a nicer people in the world. James Bay Cree Communications was formed by our Cree leaders back in about 1980 for the purpose of establishing communications to all the 9 Cree communities. The head office for the Cree Nation was in Val-d'Or at the time. And so what they developed was a Cree Nation magazine which provided information to the communities, more like in the form of reports, doing stories. And then it expanded to radio in 1986. I was involved in the training and also involved in the setting up of the radio, as I was a board member of the James Bay Cree Communications Society. And 1986 was the first time we started broadcasting. And the mandate again was also to provide information, but also our main mandate was to provide the information to our people in their own language, to keep our language alive. We have more teenager programs, playing their music, giving them information on their activities, their events, be it in the communities or outside. For our other listeners, people that are working in the offices, provided information.
We start off early from 7 to 9 with the morning hosts. Our main shows are from 7 to 9, 12 to 1, and then 3 to 4. The content of these shows include the weather forecast throughout the day, road conditions, also the whereabouts of caribous for the safety of people on the road. We also include news, mostly Aboriginal content or Quebec, federal. Of course, we do interviews. We gather stories and cover events. We also cover sports stories and anything else important that our listeners should know.
A lot of people listen to the radio as they're having breakfast. That's when the schools get in touch with us to let us know if there's any specific thing happening in the schools. So pretty well everybody that we can reach, hopefully is listening to us. And then we have our elders who we give them timeless stories. We record them and they hear their stories. And most of the time that's done early in the mornings that we put on the elder stories. And there's a lot of them too that are master storytellers, if you want. They have our history, they have the legends. They relate a lot of that, and also they talk about the medicines. So they hold a lot of knowledge that they're able to pass down. And this is why we record them. We want to make sure it's always there.
Şaşamedi. Çiçekten şıgabı cabıçladı. Uyuntuk.
Our elders are very, they are natural storytellers. There are a lot of teachings that come with their stories, and the stories of survival, I find that they give a lot of strength and hope. That's something that inspires, I find inspiring. And I find hope in them for the future.
There's a lot of things that my father did, my grandparents did, that that my mom used to relate. And even my aunt lately told me the same story. Many years ago, there was famine in this territory. A lot of people passed away because of the famine. When they went hunting on their hunting ground, north of them is where his brother lived. And one time when he went there, he noticed that his brother, son-in-law, was not there, and daughter, their family, they had young children. So he asked me, he said, "Oh, what happened to your son-in-law?" "Oh," he said, "there was an argument, and he left." "Didn't you see him?" And my grandfather knew that if he had come to Mistasny, he would have had to come by their camp. So he said, "No." He said, "How long ago was that?" He said, "About a month ago." So my grandfather got dressed right away and headed back towards his camp. This is like a good, 12-hour walk at least. And he was kind of looking around for them, see any signs. He didn't see anything. And when he got back to his camp, he told his son right away, "Let's go and look. We have to go and look for them. They got to be someplace between here and the other camp." After searching for about a couple of days, they found them. It was my grandfather that found them. And he said already there was no marks outside in the snow. And he said, and he was really scared that, they were gone. And when he announced himself at the door, the woman called from inside and said, "Oh, Uncle, I'm so glad to hear your voice." He said, "We can't move." He said, "We haven't had food for so many days that we're not able to move." And in the meantime, my grandfather got a hold of his son and he told him, "You go back to the camp and you get food." So I'm going to stay with them for a while. And he got more food, and then he left his son there. All in all, he saved that family, and he saved 3 young children that were in there. And my mom, I always remember her telling that story. That family wouldn't be here if it wasn't your grandfather, that found them. So it was very hard in their day. And most of the time when we recorded the elders about my mom's age and all that, those that remember those hard times used to always talk about it. They also ensure that we follow our customs.
The elders want to keep our way of life, our culture, our tradition. So they asked the council to initiate some projects that will help preserve our way of life and our culture, preserving our own language also at the same time. This is a traditional Cree smokehouse. What you do with the fish first is the higher part there, you dry and smoke for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. When you're ready to cook, then you put it in a lower rack with the fire. And you have to keep a tarp around it so you can keep the smoke in there. And whatever you cook with the open fire, you always have that smoke. And that smoke gives you a natural flavor to your meat, natural flavor to your fish. And if you boil tea, that smoke gives you a natural flavor. That's the good thing about cooking with the open fire.
For most any elders, I always stress that due to customs, due to the traditions that our people had for many years, such as a walking out ceremony for a child. Everybody does it. It's a main event in our communities, and it's always our elders that watch that. And it's a major ceremony where we're taught to share and how the hunting life was and still is for some people. The elders are the ones, that retain all this knowledge, and also they're still the experts on the Cree language, the master speakers, if you will.
Neskano.
Neskano, Tiano.
Neskano.
Neskano.
Helpum ganakapane.
Helpum gubne. Helpum gubne. Abstignot. Abstignot.
Abstagnot.
Tisgueso.
Tisgueso. Joitagnot. She takes time to listen to us while we're on air, and she writes down the words that we don't say properly, and she comes back to us with it, and with proper wording, we're taught the way we're supposed to say it. Stinhamorganot.
Stinhamorganot. Iot.
Init. Inut.
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 We have to educate our people. We're fortunate that we can use our Cree language in our schools. Our elders, do trust our leadership, and I know they also, trust our young people, especially knowing that their young people have gone out to get an education, and they're able to read and to understand what is going on. This happened way back in 1975. When the first time the development of the hydro projects came along, it was people that were in the college level, the Crees, that rallied the people again to ensure that things were not done on our land that would totally destroy it, destroy our way of life, destroy our culture. And so the radio has been a lot of help in informing our people of these activities so that they know what to expect and possibly what they don't want around. And that happened recently with the proposed development of uranium mining. A lot of our youth got together who were able to retrieve information, and they were able to inform our elders through public meetings or even through the radio here about what the dangers of that was. And so they were, our people and the whole Cree Nation eventually decided no, they're not going to have it. So the radio had a lot of help with that. And the people today can get all kinds of information all the time that they want. My father-in-law's hunting ground, first years we used to go there were lots of trees and all that. Within 2 years' time, all the trees are gone. The animals aren't there, the trees are all gone because of forestry, Development has moved, yes, into our community or into our territory, and it is going to affect us, but our population has grown too. So people need to survive in whichever way they can, and so a lot of people now are going into the field of mining, finding work there, getting training, but it's understood. You know, the population maybe was about 8,000 when we first signed the James Bay Agreement. Now we're closer to 20,000. When people lived on the land years ago, it could support, you know, the families of maybe 2 or 3 families. Now if you try to get everybody out onto the land to hunt, I mean, you would have more like 10, 20 families in one territory, and obviously wouldn't be able to support it. It's impossible for everybody to be on the land. We need to find ways, though, to ensure for those people that want to go and live on the land, that we find ways of helping them, that they can go on the land. Our culture, people, we're still fortunate. There are people that go hunting still. So there's still a lot of people that know all the skills, our culture. So we still have a lot of people like that around. And so today, within our school systems, we have our school calendar adjusted to our way of life. So our children are allowed to go out of the school for 1 month in the spring, so they can go and do the tradition, go and live on the land, and the whole community basically almost shuts down and everybody goes out hunting. I recorded an elder and I asked him the story, what's the main difference that you see today from what you were growing up? And he said to me very simply, he said, when I was hunting, when I was living the hunting life, I never knew the next day what I was going to be eating. But he said, when I live in the community now, he said, I can buy groceries for 1 week, even a month if I want to. We can't get enough wild game to sustain us year round, so we have to buy food from the stores. There always has been the attempt through many years now to take away things from the First Nations, including our language, including our culture, and it happened in the residential schools, as everybody is aware now. Many of our people survived the residential schools.
The most of the story that I can't ever forget is when my mom got sick and they told me that I would be going to school in English. And I was so sad because I know my mom is in the hospital. And I was away for 1 year. When I came back in June, the following summer, my dad and my sister told me my mom died in September, and that was a year. They didn't tell me that my mom died. And my sister, Flora, was 16, and she told me that she's going to look after me because mom will not come back again. That's the worst part, that they never told me my mom died around September.
And then again in 75, when they wanted to take away our rivers, when the time we went into court to fight against the hydroelectric development, there were people that we would go into town to do shopping and all that welcomed us with open arms. But during the testimonies at the court, they said that we only ate chicken now, that we didn't go hunting anymore. These are the people that we bought from, that were our friends, and then turned against us. So it's always been there. Even to this day, we got new agreements that help us to ensure that we protect our culture, protect our land, so that our way of life continue.
We're always going to have our own ways of doing things, our own traditions, our own customs, and I think that's what's going to sustain us. So that's what I want to instill in my children, and my grandchildren, to love, to respect the land. Just have to hang them. You never leave these things on the ground.
The changes that have taken place is we have big communities. We have people going into private business, which are all good things because people are learning to take care of themselves. What's going to happen in our future? My hope is that what we're doing here in the radio especially is that it will keep our language alive, that we can maintain our culture, that we will always have places where we can go and fish, places where we can go and hunt. These are all important traditions to us, and this is the way we learn to take care of each other, show our customs and our traditions. As long as there's people that can go and live off the land, I think our customs and our traditions, our language will always survive.